It's not because Christianity recommends, X, Y, and Z, but it's through Christianity that we become great.
They condemn racism, but they only condemn whites who happen to be racist.
And in a way, God is just whatever it is that keeps our civilization going.
White people are constantly being told that race is a social construct. It's not even biological.
And you think, where do you belong? You belong in a shopping mall. There's nothing to you other than that.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, finally. We had a little hiccup there. For some reason, the stream key wasn't streaming to the right stream. So I don't know where we are now, but we are live, and thank you for joining us. And I went through a whole introduction, too. It was great. But we've got a special guest today. Before that, I'd like to begin with a prayer, so please bow your heads. Oh, Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for this opportunity to chat over the internet and to brace ourselves for the coming winter and the coming hardship. We ask that Thee keep us humble and help us to rely on Thee and Thy wisdom and not just on our own abilities. We also are celebrating, of course, the birth of Thy Son, Jesus Christ, and help us to remember the true spirit of Christmas during this winter holiday season. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Okay. I also have a little scripture that I'll read from Acts 17 of the New Testament. So Paul, this is Acts 17:22 through 27. So Paul, standing in the middle of the Acropolis, said, "Men of Athens, I perceive that in every way you are very religious. For as I passed along and observed the objects of your worship, I found also an altar with this inscription, to an unknown God. What, therefore, you worship as unknown, this I proclaim to you, the God who made the world and everything in it, being Lord of heaven and earth, does not live in shrines made by man, nor is he served by human hands as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all men life and breath and everything. And he made from one every nation of men to live on all the face of the earth, having determined allotted periods and the boundaries of their habitation, that they should seek God in the hope that they might feel after him and find him. Yet he is not far from each one of us." So keep those words in mind, my friends, that he is not far. All you have to do is look. And with that, I am very pleased to welcome our guest, the esteemed Mark Collett. Welcome back to the channel, although the first time on this brand, this World of Scarcity podcast, and of course, he is here to talk with us about the Christmas season. This is something he has covered particularly well, I think, in his videos. One of his recent videos has over 100,000 views, just talking about the Christmas ads this year. So, yeah. Welcome, Mark. How are you doing? No one will ever know what was said. It's a shame. No, we were actually just joking, right? No, I'm joking. Yeah, I had identity talks. That was more of a group thing, and now I'm just doing it on my own. Totally. Yeah, everyone should subscribe to Mark's channel. If you don't keep up with that, they've got the weekly show this week on the All Right, and then he puts out weekly videos as well. So great stuff. I just fixed it. Okay, sorry about that.
That was not my fault. I'm not the boomer here.
Yeah, it's my 4th episode, so I think people can grant me some leeway. But yeah, everyone can hear Mark now. So
can you all hear me now? Can the audience hear me? I hadn't muted myself. I want to point this out. I really hate the boomer accusations when people think it's me.
Yes, this was all my fault. It's all right. We all have those days, you know. It's the internet. We don't have any perfect conversation now, but yeah, I think we fixed it now, and so.
This is Sargon level of buffoonery. I hope you realize that we've fallen to Sargon level of buffoonery. I think he got 30 minutes into a stream once without looking at the chat, and then realized it'd been 30 minutes of silence. So at least we haven't gone that far yet.
He just talked on and on. Well, you know, I figure at the very least this allows more time for people to come into the channel. And anyway, here we are, and please feel free to like the stream so that people who for some reason haven't found us can get over here. All right, so yeah, I did want to touch on the Christmas adverts video that you did. So obviously people can go watch it, but you know, the crux of it is Christmas is a Christian holiday. Big shock, okay? And frankly, most Christians are Westerners. They're white, okay? And so the fact that we have some of these videos that are trying to spread the message of inclusivity and multiculturalism, it's extremely disheartening, right? I mean, what do you want to say about these Christmas ads quickly?
Well, firstly, I'm going to say a bit about what Christmas means to me. I mean, obviously, it is a Christian festival. I don't know whether you know or whether your audience does, but last year I had the honor of being made a godfather to a wonderful little boy called Frederick, and last Christmas, on Christmas Eve, I went to the Christingle service, and we took my godson and his sister, and I was really happy to be there. And I understand it is a Christian festival. I understand the importance to Christians. But from my perspective, and what Christmas means to me, Christmas isn't just about materialism. Christmas isn't just about spending money. It's not just about gifts. It's about spending time with the people you love, spending time with your family. It means a lot more. And the fact that we put such huge stock in these big capitalist corporations, I mean, I see this all the time on Facebook. Well, if I wasn't banned on Facebook for 30 days, I'd be seeing it now. But you see idiots every year say things like, it's not Christmas until the John Lewis advert's on TV. Well, to measure the beginning of Christmas by the start of certain advertising campaigns shows just how intrinsically tied Christmas has become to sort of this orgy of spending money, this orgy of materialism and capitalism, which is very sad, because Christmas should be about something deeper. It should be something more spiritual. It should be about coming together with the people you love, your friends, your family, your partner, and it should be about spending quality time at the end of the year. And it should also be a time of reflection. I think that's very, very important. It should be a time of reflecting on the year gone by and recharging your batteries before you enter the fray again. I mean, it's kind of that strange period, isn't it? When you go past Christmas, a little gap between Christmas Day and the New Year always feels as if it's not really part of the previous year, but you're obviously not got into the new year yet either. It's kind of like the doldrums. But that part of the year for me was always very marked, because it was a time when you'd recharge your batteries. You would spend that entire time of the year, especially as a youngster, with your mum, your dad, in my case my sister, often with cousins, grandparents, aunts and uncles. And it's very, very important. So it is a slap in the face that Christmas has been turned into this orgy of materialism, but now it's being turned into something much, much worse by the same corporate entities that have already damaged Christmas so heavily. And now they're trying to turn it into this sort of vehicle to push multiculturalism, multiracialism, and almost as a vehicle to attack Christianity and to attack the people that Christmas means the most to, which is obviously, as you so rightly said, white Christians. And when you look at these adverts, they always have these very, very obvious, well, sometimes very obvious, sometimes very, very overt, but sometimes more covert and more subtle undertones. And last year, I analysed all of the Christmas adverts. I did a very long sort of analysis of the adverts by Debenhams, by eBay, by Tesco, by Morrison's, and by Marks and Spencer's. And at the time, my channel was a lot smaller, but that video gained me quite a lot of notoriety, because within around 30 minutes of it going up, it was taken down by YouTube. YouTube took it down, and they later gave me the video back. They later gave me the video back, but refused to let it out of a private state, claiming that I had used inappropriate tags, that I had tagged it inappropriately, and it could be misleading. People could have viewed it and thought it was an actual Christmas advert. People could have been looking for Christmas adverts from these big companies and found mine in error. So although I hadn't broken any of the rules, I had been a little bit naughty and misleading. Now, obviously, I pushed back to that, because it was no such thing. It was obviously a critical analysis of these adverts. But this year, I followed up last year's critical analysis with an analysis of this year's adverts, and also a little bit of a take on how these companies have fared in the year since those atrocious adverts. And obviously there was pushback, not just from me, but from a huge number of people, just normal people who saw these adverts, and they could see many of the more overt messages being pushed in those adverts. And these big companies had an awful Christmas last year. They've had an awful year this year. And the high street, people are saying it's dying, but in many ways, these big high street firms are actually committing suicide. They are lashing out and almost insulting the people who have kept them in business for decades. They are attacking the people who want to celebrate Christmas. They are attacking white people, and they are pushing these, as I said, sometimes very overt, but sometimes more subversive and more covert messages, which undermine Christmas, Christianity, the traditional family. And if you want, we can go more in depth into that and the way they are doing that.
Yeah. Well, I guess I wanted to ask you in regards to that, how much responsibility do you place on these corporations? Because, of course, if you put yourself in their position, it seems like whatever they do, they are going to get out backlash, right? If they just have this nice, okay, let's say they still have it be multicultural, but they go back to the true meaning of Christmas and don't have all this consumerism stuff in there. Well, then the non-white people, the Muslims and so on, they're going to get offended, because why are you bringing Jesus into this? This takes away from my culture and stuff. So they're going to get pushback on that. And I guess, okay, so that's one part of the question. And then do you think that if people like us were to go out and boycott these corporations, that they will start to listen to us if it is hurting their bottom line?
Well, I think these companies have become completely contemptuous of us. I don't think there would be any pushback from the vast majority of people if these companies made normal, decent Christmas adverts. For example, last year it was very marked. Morrison's produced 2 Christmas adverts. It was almost like Morrison's did a social experiment, because one of these Christmas adverts was a man and a woman, a black woman and a white guy. And the black woman had black children, clearly from a previous marriage. The white man had white children, clearly from a previous relationship. And these two sort of people had come together, they'd merged their families, and the agenda in that advert was very, very clear indeed. You could see what they were trying to push. You know, their Christmas dinner table looked more like a meeting of the UN with all the different coloured faces dotted around. It was very, very overt. Now, they did another advert as well, which was far more traditional. And this featured a white family. And the white family went to, I believe they went to a manger, you know, with the Virgin Mary, Joseph, the 3 kings. They actually visited a traditional Christmas scene, and it was a very traditional, almost old-fashioned, you might say, Christmas advert. Not that it should be old-fashioned. Christmas should never go out of fashion, and the meaning of Christmas should never go out of fashion. And those 2 adverts had a very, very different reception from the general public. One was upvoted, you know which one was, the one with the traditional message with the white family, and one was downvoted, the one which was pushing the multiculturalism. And all the Christmas adverts last year that pushed this multiculturalism had quite a lot in common. They all pushed this is last year's Christmas adverts, they all pushed the white woman with, well, not just white women with black men, but they pushed the interracial relationship angle. That was the big push last year. And if you believe these Christmas adverts to be an accurate depiction of British society, you'd think that every relationship was mixed race. You wouldn't think there was any homogenous couples left in the UK. And that's clearly, when you see every advert doing it, clearly these companies are either using the same advertising firms, and in the case of some of these advertising firms, I looked into them and I looked into their ownership, and you'd never guess who owns these companies. I mean, it just must be another one of those coincidences. And essentially, you can see.
Sorry, I call them Bluejays. They are Bluejays to me because, well, Bluejays have this habit of, I found out, going into other birds' nests and sometimes taking things from other birds' nests. They feel comfortable in there, so that's how I affectionately refer to them.
But yeah, so these adverts are produced by these people. They have a clear agenda. But actually, when you see the reception these multicultural adverts get compared to the reception a traditional advert gets, the traditional advert gets a much warmer reception. And let's look at this from a very economic point of view. If these companies really wanted to maximize profit, if these people wanted to do the best they could, and that was their only goal, their agenda in the capitalist system was simply to make money, they would tailor their adverts to be the most warmly received, because obviously adverts that are warmly received sell goods and services. Yet companies like Tesco, Marks and Spencer, Debenhams ran advertising campaigns which were hugely downvoted, that had a massive negative reception. I mean, the Marks and Spencer's one, gosh, that one was horrific. That one had so many overt and also very covert and subversive messages all weaved into it. Now, these companies, especially Tesco, they had a huge backlash last year. And you would think Tesco would say, look, we had a terrible Christmas take. There was huge problems. Our stock fell after Christmas because of how bad Christmas was for us. And our marketing campaign was a disaster. So you'd think they would look at that and say, you know what? The Morrison's advert, that was hugely upvoted. People loved it. that particular advert by Morrison's was a real winner with the kind of people who spend big at Christmas. And let's not make any mistake here. The kind of people that spend big at Christmas are your Christian families. They're your traditionalists. They're people who go out there and they want a lovely big turkey. They want all the trimmings. They want to buy nice presents. They want to make the house look lovely. They want the best quality Christmas crackers. They want little table gifts. And these people spend a lot. And you see some families will save all year in special savings accounts, put their money into special Christmas bonds to ensure that they can have the best Christmas possible. So you think Tesco would be like, you know what, let's make sure after last year's monumental cock-up, because last year you said that, you know, this might be about appeasing these Muslims. Well, last year they had Muslim families. They had, you know, dinner tables that looked like the meeting of the UN. They had Sikhs pulling Christmas crackers. And they really insulted the white families last year. As always, the white families were the ones with the worst homes. They were the ones arguing. They were the ones with the buffoonish families that couldn't cook the turkey right. And all of that multiculturalism, all those little digs at white people, all those Muslims, didn't make for bumper Christmas profits. In fact, their profits tanked. So you'd think this year, Tesco would have come back and said, you know what? We've looked at this. Our marketing campaign was a huge balls up. It was an absolute disaster. It tanked. But they didn't. They came back and said, you know what? Our marketing campaign was terrible last year. It was massively downvoted. The public hated it, and our profits tanked, and our stocks tanked with it. You know what? We're going to double down. We're going to double down, and we're going to give all those people that we annoyed last year, all those people we alienated last year, we're going to give them another dose of Christmas crap. And that's what they gave us. They gave us an advert that was clearly done by the same company. It was clearly stylized in the same way. It had Muslims. It dropped the gay couple this year. Last year I made a joke about the gay couple. I said, you know, you've got the gay couple, and I said next year we're going to have like lesbians who inseminated each other with the turkey baster. And this year they actually listened. I think they must have watched my analysis, because this year they had the lesbian couple in the maternity ward. You know, they didn't have the turkey baster in shot, but it was clearly used for more than just basting the bird. And well, it did baste the bird, but in a very different and more edgy way. And they pushed this all on us again. And at the end of the advert, you saw not a mixed race family, but an ethnically homogenous family. An ethnically homogenous family of African descent, all having the greatest Christmas ever. You know, the greatest Christmas ever. Mum, dad, grandparents all around the table, everyone well dressed, everyone polite, you know. And you look at all that and you think to yourself, these guys didn't learn, did they? These guys didn't learn. But flash back through that advert, and how were the white people presented? Well, if you look at how the white males were presented in that advert, you had the fat buffoon who was annoying everyone at the Christmas table. You had the lonely old white man out in the cold because no one loves him, because remember, old white people are sad and, you know, lonely and no one likes them. You know, thanks for that one, Tesco. And the other white male, well, you know, it took a second or maybe even third glance to figure out he was male, because he was part of the metrosexual group. And at first you were left scratching your head, because I'm not really sure people like that even celebrate Christmas. And, you know, you couldn't tell he was even a fella at first anyway. And you're looking at all that. So again, Tesco chose to kick the white male in the teeth, present the white families in the least appealing light, and push all that multiculturalism upon us again, which makes you think these companies, they are being run by people who don't actually prioritize profit. They are more committed to forcing this multicultural propaganda, this brainwashing, this subversive anti-white agenda upon us than they are about even doing their jobs. So then you have to see the capitalist system not as, say, you know, an economist would, not as a means of economic sort of trade, but actually as another tool in the anti-white toolbox. You know, capitalism and communism, they aren't just economic systems. These are two systems that are run by a group of people who are viciously anti-white and anti-European.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking, nobody nobody looks at that black family and is like, Christmas too black or something like that. It's, you know, it's a huge double standard. Even if you buy into the multiculturalism thing, how do you not look at yourself and just understand the hypocrisy? But it truly is anti-white, and like you said, you know this because they are constantly making us into buffoons and destroying our traditions. So yeah, I think I agree that they're not going to, you know, it seems like it's impossible for them to even conceive of retreating back to normalcy, you know, even retreating back to 2 years ago. They dig in their feet and they're like, no, we're going to double down. Every time they double down, and it doesn't matter about money or anything. And people wonder why we end up getting into these conflicts, these wars and stuff. It has a lot to do with that, because I think we've shown for sure that our side is willing, at least in the past, to back down and compromise. But their side never compromises, and so they're always getting another inch. They take this long march through the institutions like this, and Christmas is one of the ways that they've subverted our culture. So I want to dive in. I'm glad you were mentioning the gays and lesbians, because the first story, which it actually came out last year, okay? And I'm gonna put it up on the screen, see if I can do this. So this is a children's book called Santa's Husband. It was originally, the idea was originally formed by this Kibblesmith guy, Daniel Kibblesmith. He wrote in 2016, me and I guess my wife have decided our future child will only know about Black Santa. If they see a white one, we'll say, that's his husband. How sick is this? And then you see about a year later, I can't believe this, but it's officially happening. Santa's Husband, coming holidays 2017. And so yeah, this is another one of those Bluejays. Let's see, do I have another? Well, I might have another image of it, but
Man, I was just going to check. That is horrific. I mean, I've seen that before, but you see, this is another thing that really gets me, because now we're sort of branching out a bit here. But they can't leave children alone, can they? They can't leave anything as innocent and pure. They can't leave any aspect of a child's upbringing as normal and traditional and healthy. Santa can't be married to Mrs. Claus. You know, he has to now have, you know, a black lover. And that, to me, a black male lover, and that to me is a real another angle to this, because children, you know, at Christmas, their biggest worry should be, you know, whether Santa's coming down the chimney. It should be, you know, writing those letters. It should be, you know, baking the cookies with their mum the day before to leave out for him and his reindeer. It should be, you know, that magic that children love. Those times, they live with you for the rest of your life. I mean, I still remember some of my earliest Christmases, and I have these sort of memories of coming downstairs, and you get like action figures, and action figures aren't that expensive, so you get quite a lot of them. Like when you're older, you ask for things like games console, so you only get your games console because that's, you know, that's several £100. But when I was a kid, I remember one year getting all these He-Man action figures, and I just remember sort of coming downstairs, and it was like the entire floor of the living room was like a sea of presents. I remember going through them all and unwrapping these He-Man toys, and it was just a magical time. And every child should have memories like that live with them for the rest of their lives. But instead, what's going to happen now? Children are going to have these warped memories of being sort of dragged along to some politically correct indoctrination camp where They're not thinking about He-Man or Barbie or going shopping with their mum or building a snowman with their dad or, seeing this giant turkey, which seems the size of them, that granddad cuts at the Christmas dinner table. Their memories of Christmas are going to be tarnished with hideous sexual overtones. And that's another thing. It's not just about the multiculturalism. They have to drip, drip, drip their sexual perversion and degeneracy into the minds of children. And children can't really even comprehend some of these things. So instead of thinking about going and sitting on Santa's knee and giving him, their letter, and that's such an innocent and wonderful time for a child, they're now looking at their mum and dad and saying, why are the two Santas? Why is Santa kissing a man? I mean, how ghoulish and evil and vile are these people? I mean, we know the answer to that, but it is a barometer of their mental sickness and the lengths they'll go to corrupt our young and upend our healthy and decent society. They would take these things that are so cherished and aimed at such innocent and young minds and turn them into something so vile, so sick, so twisted. And the fact these people want to do this to us shows what level of utter contempt and hatred they have for us.
I'm just pulling up here another picture. Like any married couple, they have their disagreements, but they always manage to kiss and make up, usually over a plate of milk and cookies. So I guess the whole idea of this book is like, okay, we're trying to normalize this behavior, and I've heard people. I looked through the comments a little, and some of them are signally type of stuff. Oh, let's encourage this behavior, and I'm gonna get up points, and then others of them. It is like you say, it's so sick, and so some person wrote this guy a review with triple parenthesis brackets and just all that on Amazon, but and he was retweeting it. He was so proud, like, oh look, these people. Essentially, these people don't like what I'm doing. Isn't it so funny? Ha ha ha. So he takes it all as this big joke. And I think now, let me see if I can find it here. He's got this other book coming out this year with Rugrats. C is for Chanukah. And, I don't see too many mixed race couples in this book, which... that's kind of an interesting thing, isn't it? But so yeah, it is quite despicable what they're pushing, and I brought this up too because I'm sort of as a self-promotion thing. I'm actually working on a children's book that will help kids understand diversity and help their parents understand where not to allow this kind of indoctrination to happen to their kids. And I think it's really important that we try to counter the cultural aspects of this perversion and just do what we can to point out how vile and evil this is. Because you're right, they do push it on children. They don't start out that way a lot of times. They always start out with, oh, it's just two consenting adults doing whatever they want to do. But we know when it comes to homosexuality, we know that there are links to molestation of children and so on. And so if you are promoting this kind of agenda, you are in effect promoting child abuse of that kind. So I just, did you have any more to say on Santa's husband or before we move on?
Yeah, I just want to echo what you're saying, that It is about child abuse, because not only does it strip these children of their innocence, but it also introduces them to ideas and themes that they can't possibly hope to understand. So you see all through schools now this alarming rise in young children sexually abusing one another. Now, that is undoubtedly due to the fact that children are being introduced to highly sexualized and perverse themes at an ever younger age. Now, children can't possibly comprehend those things. Their minds aren't developed enough. And because of that, they go away very confused, they go away very mixed up, and then they often do awful things to each other because they simply can't comprehend the depth of the depravity that's been forced upon them. And by normalizing sort of pornography, degeneracy to children in schools, you are opening this Pandora's box. And if you think about it, you wouldn't give a child a machine gun. You wouldn't give a child a machine gun because it wouldn't really be safe or right. You would wait till the child was a little older. You'd wait till a child was able to comprehend the item it had been given. Because if you gave a child a weapon and it couldn't comprehend the ramifications of using that weapon, it would be seen as abusive. It would be seen as a huge negative for you to do that, because the child could cause damage to itself or to others and wouldn't even understand what it was doing. And it's exactly the same when you give children ideas of a sexual nature. They simply don't understand the ramifications of their actions, and then they end up doing horrific things to their classmates, and those children have to live with that for the rest of their lives, and that scars these children, and it causes an entire generation to bear those scars, grow up with those scars, which leads to the further downfall and degradation of our society and civilization, which is, of course, the end goal of these wicked people.
There we go. Yeah, so this is, I mean, it's a very serious topic, and maybe this is a flaw of mine. I always tend to want to bring in humor when they're talking about something serious, but I just had to get this in there that I found out there's a Christmas song by Tiny Tim called Santa Claus Has Got the AIDS. It was written in the 80s, so it's kind of funny in the context of all this. But yeah, I mean, it's such a serious topic, and when people start messing with our children's psychology and brains, and that's when I go, I'm not gonna Fed post here, but like ape shit, that is too far, and they've been doing this for a long time, and well, I think it's understandable that a lot of people feel this rage, and they don't know what to do when they find out that this is happening. So I think the sooner that we can get the word out, actually the better the things will be, because as we mentioned, they're not backing down, they're only doubling down, and so it's coming to a head. And if we keep going like this, then something terribly just devastational is going to happen. I mean, something like this kind of evil can't continue on forever. Either one side gets destroyed, or the other side is forced to stop what they're doing in some way. And well, if it's for the sake of my children, I certainly want to be on the side of my children.
Well, you have to be. We have to stop these people, because everything they do essentially is to the aim of it is to destroy our civilization and to erase white people. It's to bring about white genocide. And what is the single thing that underpins every civilization, society, or people? Well, it's the family unit. And if you destroy the family unit, you destroy society. You make a people rootless. And if you prevent family units from forming by messing up children's heads long before they ever get to the point of being able to find a partner, long before they get to the point of being of the age to reproduce, you effectively stop society from ever being able to heal the wounds that have been inflicted upon it. So, for example, if you mess up, and let's talk about young boys here, because we're both men. Now, I've talked about this many times before. When I was a kid, we'd sit on the school bus, and occasionally, very occasionally, somebody would get their hands on a porn mag. Somebody would be walking past some bushes and find a discarded porno mag, and that'd get handed round on the bus. And the images were pretty tame. There'd be very pretty girls in different states of undress, and all the lads would have a look. But now, on these school buses, every single child has got a smartphone, and they've all got gigabytes of pornography on it. But not just pretty girls in a state of undress, but girls doing the most horrific, unnatural things with multiple partners in the most graphic way possible. And that attack is based on the minds of those young men. It's to ensure that young men have a very, very warped view of females, of sexual interaction, and a very, very unnatural view of what the female should be. And if a young man is essentially, I was going to say drip fed, but it's not drip fed, is it? It's a torrent of this material. If a young man's mind is submerged in a pool of this degeneracy, that young man will grow up and he will not be able to have normal loving relationships or sexual interactions with young women, which will prevent him from forming the long-lasting natural relationships needed to foster another generation of children, another generation of well-adapted and well brought up and mentally balanced children, which is what we need. And obviously that is an attack upon us. And this kind of pornography, this kind of degeneracy, isn't just found on the school bus. It is now being taught in the classroom. And you see these, these aren't my words, inverted commas, leading academics who are saying children need to be exposed to these things at an earlier age so that they understand sex at an earlier. Why? And these leading academics are our enemies. They're not academics. They're the purveyors of perversion. And they're doing this not just in the school, but now at Christmas time with their sick, twisted Santa stories, because they want our children to be so submerged in this degeneracy, so submerged in this sort of mental sickness, that all of our children grow up not being able to function on a decent and meaningful level. Because if our children can't carry on our genetic line, we're done for. And it's very telling, isn't it, that all this perversion, degeneracy, and madness being pushed on our children is outlawed in the state of Israel. They've actually passed laws in the state of Israel to prevent pornography going through internet service providers. So if you want to see online porn, you have to write to your ISP to authorize it. And this is to protect their children. But in this country, our children have to be fully immersed in it. And there is going to be a huge pushback to this because people are getting sick of it. And the pushback might start off small. It might start off with people just boycotting businesses. It might start off with people not shopping at Tesco's, not going to the company that suggests that Christmas is about lesbians in the maternity ward, but instead just going back to their local farm shop or greengrocer. But if these people keep pushing this filth upon us, there will be an increasingly forceful pushback in all manners and all walks of life, because eventually people will get sick of it. And as I said earlier, they're not just drip feeding us. This isn't just something that's small. This is now a torrent that everyone can see, and increasingly people are very unhappy with. And I'm really proud that people like you and I are at the center of this pushback, because I believe in the future, when people look back on this period of degeneracy that can only be compared to periods of history like the Weimar Republic, I think people will look back and say, thank heavens people stood up to this and pushed back. And I believe that that's another reason why they want to strip Christianity from Christmas, because they want to destroy Christian morality, because Christian morality has always been a major bulwark against this kind of degeneracy. And when people were going to church, when the church and the Christian establishment used to stand for the right things, and we have to acknowledge as well, as much as we are speaking up on behalf of Christianity, we also must acknowledge the way that the church in places like the UK has itself been perverted, has itself been co-opted and twisted from within by these cultural Marxists. But they had to do that because, as I said earlier, Christianity and Christmas, it was all part of our people's fortitude against this horrific degeneracy.
Right. Speaking of degeneracy, I want to move on to the next one, and you've probably heard this one. So some radio stations are banning the song "Baby It's Cold Outside." They've stopped playing this, and over concerns of the Me Too era. So this is a Cleveland radio station. Now, you've probably heard the song. It features a man and a woman. This is from Neptune's Daughter. That's the name of the movie, 1944. So, you know, very different era, right? And it features this suave-looking guy and this pretty lady who's dressed up, and they're alone in presumably his apartment, and she is saying it's getting late. I should probably go. And you know, I'm not because of copyright. I'm not going to play the whole video, but that's the premise. Is that you know, baby, it's cold outside is just kind of a way of him saying you should stay a little longer, and giving her permission, right, to do so. And there's also, okay, so someone who is actually a feminist wrote a response to this. Now I'm gonna read through it, although it's kind of long, but I think it's really worth reading out on the air. So, hi there, former English nerd / teacher here. Also a big fan of jazz of the 30s and 40s. So here's the thing. Given a cursory glance and applying today's worldview to the song, yes, you're right, it absolutely sounds like a rape anthem. But let's look closer. Here's what's in this drink was a stock joke at the time, and the punchline was invariably that there's actually pretty much nothing in the drink, not even a significant amount of alcohol. See, this woman is staying late, unchaperoned at a dude's house. In the 1940s, that's the kind of thing good girls aren't supposed to do, and she wants people to think she's a good girl. The woman in the song says outright multiple times that what other people will think of her staying out is what she's really concerned about. Quote, the neighbors might think. Quote, my maiden's aunt mind is vicious. Quote, there's bound to be talk tomorrow. But she's having a really good time, and she wants to stay. And so she is excusing her uncharacteristically bold behavior, either to the guy or to herself, by blaming it on the drink, unaware that the drink is actually really weak, maybe not even alcoholic at all. That's the joke. That is the standard joke that's going on when a woman in media from the early to mid 20th century says, hey, what's in this drink? It's not a joke about how she's drunk and about to be raped. It's a joke about how she's perfectly sober and about to have an awesome consensual sex and use the drink for plausible deniability because she's living in a society where women aren't supposed to have sexual agency. Basically, the song only makes sense in the context of a society in which women are expected to reject men's advances, whether they actually want to or not, and therefore it's normal and expected for a lady's gentleman companion to pressure her despite her protests, because he knows she would have to say that whether she meant it or not. And if she really wants to stay, she won't be able to justify doing so unless he offers her an excuse other than "I'm staying because I want to." In this particular case, he's pretty clearly right, because the woman has a voice, and she's using it to give all the culturally understood signals that she actually does want to stay, but can't say so. She states explicitly that she's resisting because she's supposed to, not because she wants to. Quote, "I ought to say no, no, no." She states explicitly that she's just putting up a token resistance so she'll be able to claim later that she did what's expected of a decent woman in this situation. Quote, "At least I'm gonna say that I tried." And at the end of the song, they're singing together in harmony because they're both on the same page, and they have been all along. So it's not actually a song about rape. In fact, it's a song about a woman finding a way to exercise sexual agency in a patriarchal society designed to stop her from doing so. But it's also, at the same time, one of the best illustrations of rape culture that pop culture has ever produced. It's a song about a society where women weren't allowed to say yes, which happens to mean it's also a society where women don't have a clear and ambiguous way to say no. And so the reason I wanted to focus on that is that, well, a lot of people have done to death the whole, basically what she's saying is yeah, it's a different time and so on. It's not exactly rape, but I wanted to comment on and see what you think about these like feminists turning on themselves. And there's actually another good example with Rudolph, which was the third one I had in this, which is similar, where yeah, well, let's go through that one too, and then just talk about them both simultaneously. I think that's probably a good idea. So, Huffington Post, they put out this tweet, right? Do I have it here? Yes. Okay, so Huffington Post put out this tweet about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and how it was problematic, right? And some people sort of on the left, I don't know, some people were saying it was a joke and they were defending it that way. But essentially, it has to do with, Rudolph is marginalized and so on. And like Donner apparently is patriarchal, and he won't let his wife go out into the cold because he says this is a man's job and so on. So they point to all these things. Now, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, it's a song that was composed by a Bluejay, and yeah, it's all about being inclusive, right? At the end of the thing, they learn, hey, Rudolph, we're going to welcome him into our reindeer games now. So they learn a lesson, but ultimately this isn't good enough for the progressives of 2018. So can you comment, Mark, on sort of, because my strategy is just to kind of let them, if your enemy is attacking its own creation, let them make that mistake. But what do you make of all this backlash and stuff of the left towards things that were in the past progressive?
Well, these people are clearly crackpots, aren't they? They're clearly crackpots. But you can see how their mantra has sort of developed over time. You see, the original Christmas song that you were discussing there, I suppose at one time that would have been pushing quite a message of promiscuity to people who were unattached, staying behind on a Christmas night to obviously have sexual liaisons. And at one time that would be quite taboo, because there was obviously a huge push for people to be in meaningful relationships before they ended up having sex with one another, and for good reason, because obviously if people are having lots of, consensual sex all over the place with lots of different partners, you have lots of unwanted children, you have lots of single parent families, you have lots of STDs, and obviously that's not good for society. But now, obviously, that what was once sort of taboo is now seen as sort of quite passé, and is now attacked by the progressives of the day on other grounds. And obviously that song, by today's standards, would be seen as quite tame. It would be seen as something that might even be seen as sort of family friendly. People would play at, a Christmas party, or, somebody who was older would think that would be quite acceptable to play. And now it's being attacked. But the one that I did see was the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I didn't know who had originally wrote it. But when I saw that it was being attacked, again, it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me whatsoever, because every single thing that we might have seen at one time as being something healthy, natural, or normal, or something that was just an innocent part of our childhood. I remember Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer from being a child. I remember people singing along to that. I remember it being part of Christmas. And again, it's just chipping away at, part of the innocence of Christmas. And every time they chip away at these things, you always note that they create a vacuum. They take something away and they create a vacuum. Then they ably fill that vacuum with something that is much worse, something much more subversive, something much more degenerate than what was originally there. And you see this in everything that they do. For example, they remove the male role model from the family unit. And when they've created that vacuum, they fill that vacuum with a role model that, well, calling the people that they now hold up as role models is twisted in itself, because they're not role models. They're anything but role models. But that's what they intend to do. And you were saying that, a radio station has refused to play this, a radio station isn't supporting this. Do you know what? We need to run all these people out of business. We need to shut these people down, because these people rely on us. And I think it's really, really funny that a lot of these stations, a lot of these broadcasters, they rely, again, on advertising revenue. And if we're not watching, if we're not tuning in, they don't get that advertising revenue. And we can deal these people a death blow. And to undo their evil, all we need to do is keep doing what we're doing. And we need to get better at what we're doing. We need to spread what we're doing more aggressively. And we need to ensure that what we're doing goes to a wider audience. Because the more people who are watching shows like this, watching podcasts like mine, the more people who are engaging with the alternative media, the less people there will be to engage with the legacy media, with the fake news media, and with the lying press. And by doing that, we actually strip them of not only the power that they hold over us, not only the power they wield, but also their financial power. We strip them of their ability to make money. And we've done that to places like Tesco's. I mean, I was talking earlier about what we've done to these big retailers. Well, Debenhams is now closing stores. House of Fraser in the UK is going out of business. We have hit these high street firms so hard that they're shutting up shop. And we can do the same to the legacy media. We can force our enemies into a position where they are not only irrelevant, but into a position where they are unable to function. Because one thing that does go in our favor is these people aren't very clever. Now, if they'd have drip fed us with this poison, they might have got away with it for a bit longer. But by turning on the taps to full blast and drowning us so blatantly with this poison and perversion, by accelerating things to such a degree, more and more people are waking up. And people often have the analogy of boiling a frog. If you throw a frog into boiling water, it panics and it jumps out. But if you sit a frog in nice cool water and slowly turn up the heat, it sits smiling while it's boiled alive. And these people are now turning up the heat to such a degree, everyone can feel it. And people all over, not just people like us, because I do speak to normal people. I have a relatively, I speak to a lot of people in the real world, people who aren't political, but people who know that I'm political. And more often, I have normal people who 5 or 10 years ago wouldn't have said a peep about all this. People who 5 or 10 years ago may have even laughed at me, may have even said, oh, come on, mate, you're wasting your time. You know, why don't you just come down the pub and forget it all and have a few beers? I have people like that more and more often coming up to me and saying, oh, mate, I've been watching your podcast. Absolutely brilliant. I've noticed all this myself. And people who were previously disinterested are now very interested. People who even laughed at me and sort of joked and said that I was wasting my time are now wanting to get on board. Because our enemies, they are so overconfident. They are so ridiculously full of themselves and full of their own sort of righteous indignation. They feel that victory is already at hand, and they're doing their victory lap very prematurely because their overconfidence is going to be their undoing. So in a way, although I don't like, you know, these attacks on our people, I don't like seeing Christmas smashed upon the rocks of degeneracy, I say to our enemies, keep on pushing the envelope, because you are only ensuring your own defeat by doing so.
Yeah, and you know, our enemies, they can laugh all they want at, oh, ha ha ha, these people think that there's a war on Christmas, aren't they so fragile or whatever. But let's remember that Donald Trump talked about the war on Christmas quite a bit in the election. You know, that whole, we're going to say Merry Christmas again. And so it's just this thing that you can present to normies very easily, and they're very receptive to it because this is a tradition. And although, you know, you and I might look at things like Rudolph or whatever, and we might say, you know, there's actually some influences there that aren't the most wholesome. Even so, this is a part of people's, as you were describing, they have this nostalgia growing up where this is how they experienced Christmas, and hearing the music on the radio stations during Christmas time. You know, I actually used to not like Christmas music so much, but just this past year, I've really taken to it, and I was really looking forward to it this year, hearing the songs on the radio. And maybe it's because I'm, you know, starting a new family and everything myself. But I think for a lot of people, it brings back the memories, and it is a way of, you know, even the people who aren't religious themselves, but they're culturally Christian, whatever, they still partake in these activities because it gives them an outlet for reflecting on the year, for taking, you know, just getting caught up in that spirit of joy and goodwill towards their neighbors and so on. And it is magical. You know, you might, some people don't like telling their kids about Santa, that's fine, but like there is this magic in the season, and I think that you know, to lose that, when we secularize Christmas, we're taking something of our cultural soul and smashing it to bits, and well, I say we, but you know, it's being done by other people largely, and people who don't have our interests at heart. I'd also, let's see how we're doing on time. Yeah, pretty good. I did want to read through a list. Speaking of the Christmas songs, I've got this list here of songs that were written by Bluejays, as I say. So we've got Baby It's Cold Outside. We already talked about that one. That was Frank Loesser. And then the king of sort of Bluejay Christmas music, if you will, is Johnny Marks, who was born John David Marks, and he wrote Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. He also wrote Run Rudolph Run, popularized by Chuck Berry. He also wrote Holly Jolly Christmas. Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree was another one of his. So then you also have Robert Wells and Mel Torme, both Bluejays. The Christmas song, Chestnuts Roasting on an Open Fire. Okay, you've also got Sammy Kahn, who was born Samuel Cohen, and Julie Stein, born Julius Stein. That's another thing. A lot of these people you've noticed in the music industry, they have this habit of changing their name, almost like they don't want to be called out or something. Making it more, just so it fits in with the common people, right?
Yeah, I just want to say I love that on Twitter, when these people will start talking about how awful it is to be white, how terrible it is to be a white person, and the guilt they have, and then somebody will call them out for what they really are, and they always react in such horror, don't they? I was like, how did you know that I was one of the tribe? And it's like, you gave it away so easily.
Back, huh?
And you often see these people saying things like, one minute they'll be saying, oh, I'm so ashamed to be white. We must all acknowledge our white privilege and take on our fair share of white guilt. And then, 4 weeks later, it's Happy Hanukkah to my fellow tribesmen. It's like every single time.
Yeah, they happen to want to play it both ways. So, okay, then we've got Edward Pola, born Sidney Polaksik, and George Weil, born Bernard Weissman. That they wrote. Okay, so the last one I forgot to mention. Let It Snow, Let It Snow, Let It Snow. This one, Weil and Pola wrote It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year. You've also got Santa Baby, which was a very sexualized one. That was by Joan Javits and Philip Springer. You've got Jay Livingston, born Jacob Leveson, and Ray Evans with Silver Bells. What else? Felix Bernard was the composer for Winter Wonderland. The lyrics are actually written by Irish American. The same with I'll Be Home for Christmas, which was written or composed by Walter Kent. Ralph Blaine, born Ralph Hunsaker, Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. He was the co-writer of that one. Also, Fred Coots wrote the song Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Mitchell Parish, born Michael Pashalinsky, wrote Sleigh Ride, co-wrote Sleigh Ride. Of course, the one most people are familiar with, Irving Berlin, born Israel Balin, wrote White Christmas. Albert Hogg composed You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch. Gloria Baker, born Gloria Shine, wrote Do You Hear What I Hear? So those are the ones that I found. It almost seems like it's harder to find some. I mean, obviously, Silent Night or the little. But that's the thing. If you look at this list, what do they all have in common? They're about the snow falling on the ground, or the sleigh ride, or let's have a merry time. Let's go to the shopping mall and spend some money. And so a lot of these Bluejays, they got very rich through writing these songs, and of course because of the Hollywood industry that was being built up. Now the time period most of these is 1920s to 1960s. That was the sweet spot for this era of Christian music and a lot of what we hear on the radio today. But a lot of people aren't aware of this. They just sort of lump all Christmas music together. But it's not to say that you have to boycott all of these songs, right? But it is important to be aware and to if you are trying to get into the sort of Christian spiritual message of Christmas, try something like Little Town of Bethlehem or something like that. Silent Night was one of my favorite songs. Do you have any particular favorite Christmas songs, Mark?
I just want to come in there because you just made a really excellent point. I mean, earlier on I was talking about the way these people they create a vacuum and then they fill that vacuum. And in this case, what they've done is they've actually stripped away the meaningful and Christian Christmas carols, things that tie us to our history, our culture, our religion, our way of life. And what have they done? They've created that vacuum, and then they filled that vacuum with something meaningless, something or things that have meanings, but they don't have the proper meaning of Christmas. They have something more insidious built into them. And this is exactly what we were talking about earlier. So all of these Christmas carols that my parents were probably brought up with. My parents knew word for word. They sang every year. You know, you had carol singers going around knocking on doors, collecting money for charity. All of those things have now been done away with by these people. And the vacuum created is then ably filled with something that isn't wholesome, it isn't good, it doesn't link us to our past, it doesn't link us to anything meaningful. It simply pushes some form of perversion, degeneracy, or nonsense upon us, whether that be wanton materialism, whether that be sort of sexual promiscuity, whether it be anything that these people like to push on us. We know what they push on us. And it's a very, very good point. And I would suggest to people that if they wanted to share something or wanted to sing along with things, sing along to traditional Christmas carols, sing along to something that actually has a greater degree of meaning, a greater degree of connection to our past, to our heritage, to things that actually tie us to deeper and more cultural aspects of Christmas, not to things that are just tied to materialism, or to even worse, which are the things you were discussing there.
Right.
And also, if probably I was going to pick a Christmas carol, I would probably pick Silent Night, because Silent Night was sung in the trenches of World War I, and it was sung by soldiers during the Christmas truce. And if we think back to World War I, that was one of the greatest fratricidal wars to ever be fought by the European people. And there is only one tribe of people that benefited from that. And you have to remember that the First World War ended on the Eastern Front long before it ended on the Western Front. But when it ended on the Eastern Front, the collapse of the Russian Empire and the collapse of the Tsarist rule gave rise to communism in the East. It gave rise to the communist revolution in Russia. And that revolution was obviously led by the Bolsheviks. And when we're talking about the Bluejays, you might as well call them the Bolshevik Bluejays, because that's what they are. That's what the Bolshevik government was made up of. And obviously, the First World War, no white Europeans, or the common white European man, certainly didn't benefit from that. But the tribe certainly did. And they used it to usher in a period of unrivaled brutality, which saw tens of millions of white Europeans disappear to gulags or be genocided throughout Eastern Europe.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, of course, it's not everyone. Everyone knows the whole thing. Not all of them, but there aren't enough of the ones who are not doing that type of thing to counteract the ones who are, and so that's really the main problem, right? And with the Christmas music, so there was while I was researching these songs, I actually came across a documentary film, and of course I didn't watch it. It's not really available for free, but I'll paste the link into the chat. It's called Dreaming of a Bluejay Christmas. So it's amazing, actually. It's of course the whole cast is Bluejays, and this guy Capello is interviewed in it. He says, here's a quote: "So much of the poignancy of these songs is the desire to belong. It's looking through the paned window glass of the country club you can't get into. People don't realize how much anti-Bluejayism there was, how limited the opportunities were, how desperate these immigrants were to make a path. The irony is these writers literally defined secular Christmas in America. So that was very poignant. He also has this cool, well, it's an interesting video where he's talking about the composition of White Christmas. And you can probably go search for it, Capello or whatever. But he shows kind of, it's interesting. He'll take these musical passages and he will play it how it would traditionally be played, you know, which is generally a more simple melody. But then what Irving Berlin did is he added these extra flourishes kind of in there that are in that song White Christmas, you know, the doo-doo-doo or something. And he said, you know, this is, you know, he was trying to describe these as almost Bluejay notes, if you will. Like they're coming through, like this is the spirit of the immigrant. And really, I mean, basically, it's very honest. What he's saying is that these immigrants to America came here, and instead of truly being assimilated, they kind of took the you know, the traditions and the musical the things that whites really get, and the founding stock of America, they really cherish these kind of melodies, and then kind of twist it. And that's really what you see a lot with these different kinds of propaganda. And for some people it might be strange, how can music have this kind of effect, right? How can the just a couple lyrics and some composed music, like how can that change the course of history and steer people in a certain direction? It's maybe not as obvious as things like movies and porn, but a lot of that it is present, and it's just very interesting because these people will say things, and a lot of times if you want the truth, you just have to go to the horse's mouth, and they'll tell you exactly what they're doing. Now, they won't say it's a bad thing. They'll say this is wonderful. This is amazing that we're contributing in this way, and you know, Americans should be grateful, really, that Bluejays have come in here and enriched the society and given them all the tunes that they know. But you know, what if we're not grateful? They never think about that. Like, what if we don't actually want these things? What if we want our simple melodies, our boring, mundane, really just that's the way they see beauty and they see our culture. So, you know, just it's maybe people want to go watch this documentary because it is kind of interesting, the effect that they've had on the Christmas music of our pastime, and just really creating. I think all of this was leading towards pushing the Christmas towards a more commercialized, more secular version. And now that stage is complete, what do they do next? Well, they have to bring in even more degeneracy, you know, Santa's husband, and all these other things. And it's the culture of critique, perhaps, right?
Indeed. And what I want to add to that as well, I just want to add a couple of little things to what you've so eloquently put there. Firstly, they say things like, all we've done is change a few little songs. All we've done is, you know, written a few melodies. But it's not that, is it? It's not that. That's exactly not what they've done. It's a multi-pronged attack. And it is a few melodies. It's a few films. It's a few adverts. It's an awful lot of pornography. It's the promotion through these adverts and these films of drugs, of alcohol, of promiscuity, of not listening to your parents, of rejecting your culture, of spitting on Christianity. They have pushed secularism. They have banned Christian iconography at the White House, but the White House has a huge, 20-foot menorah outside during Hanukkah, but no Christian cross.
I think it's 30 feet, if I remember.
30 feet. Sorry, I was 10 foot short there. And it's not just one thing. It's a multi-pronged attack. And the same people are always steering and directing that attack. So it's never just one thing. And one thing they've also done, which is very, very good from their point of view, very, very clever, very insidious, is something you touched upon there. You said that they always claim that we should be grateful for this enrichment, that we should be happy for the things that they've given us and the things they've done for our boring society. And that's another key, isn't it? They always try to claim that our societies were so boring that they needed enriching, that they needed spicing up, that our Christmas songs, weren't good enough, that they were old-fashioned, they were a bit sad, a bit, they were just for the dorks and the nerds and all the cool kids. They thank them for the enrichment. But isn't that very clever? Isn't it incredible the way they have made us look down on our own culture, the way they have made us sort of frown or sneer at the things that our parents enjoyed, that our parents held dear, we now look on with contempt and sometimes even disgust, whereas the things that their parents enjoyed, the things that their parents held dear, they still hold dear. Because all of this is an awfully clever set of devious tricks that are being enacted against us in order to make us sever our ties to our history, to our culture. And I believe it was Marcus Garvey, I'm going to paraphrase him, he was actually a black nationalist, but he said that essentially a people without a history are like a tree without roots. And a tree without roots will quickly be blown over. It will quickly die. It has no future. And a people without a culture, a people who have no knowledge of their history and their past and their racial inheritance, they have no future either. Because if you don't know where your forefathers came from, if you can't track the footsteps in the sands of time, how can you possibly know where you came from? And if you don't know where you came from, how can you know where you need to go or the path you must tread? You can't. And that is the way they seek to destroy us. They seek to sever our roots and leave us rootless. And isn't that an awful, awful way for a people to die out? It is truly a crime against our people, what is being enacted now. And that is the way they will bring about our genocide. Because once we don't know where we came from, once we don't have any reverence for our history, our culture, our past, we don't have any reverence for our people, and we don't see any importance in race, culture, ethnicity, tradition, and we will just drift apart. And as listless and materialistic, hedonistic individuals, we will be cut off, we will be isolated, and we will die a slow, painful, and lonely death. And that is why this is the most righteous pushback in the history of our people, because we are the revolution. We are the people who will bring back not only a sense of being and a sense of direction to our people, but we shall bring back the true meaning of wonderful festivals like Christmas. And Christmas is just part of this tapestry, but obviously at this time of the year, it is a very important part of that tapestry. And that's why people like yourself, people pushing this message, are so important for the future of our people and to ensure that the flame of our culture carries on burning so brightly.
Right. Well, I was just thinking as you were talking that some people might be skeptical that, oh, all of this is being done maliciously. Now, I probably would not say that every person who engages in this is trying to bring about white genocide, but frankly, I don't think that really matters. I am pretty sure that there are some who that is the case for them, and those people are evil. But I think there's also we should remember that there's also, this might just be an unconscious thing, and it's.
I believe it is for some of them.
What's that?
I believe you're right.
Yeah.
You're fundamentally right. This isn't something people don't sit around. Not all of them sit around a huge boardroom table. They don't have a meeting. It's not like White Genocide Conference 2019. Come on, where are the pornographers today? They're always blooming late, aren't they? It's not like that. Oh, who brought the beers? Who was in charge of bringing the beers? Oh, that was the music division. You've been writing your anti-white tunes, but you forgot the beers and snacks this year. That's not how it works. But equally, regardless of the fact it may not be a coordinated effort in that sense, if someone comes into your home and puts a gun to your children's head, does it really matter what their motivation is? No. The important thing is disarming that person and ensuring the safety of your children, and spending huge amounts of time, as some people do on the internet, trying to fathom the deep and underlying motivations behind these people is, in a very real sense, a waste of time. The fact is, they are doing what they are doing, and we need to stop them doing it. Sorry for that interjection.
No, that's okay. No, I was just going to say that I think... yeah, I mean, your interjections are always welcome because you're very astute. But I just think when it comes to empathy, white people, and I did a video about pathological altruism that I was illustrating, but we certainly often can be empathetic to our detriment. But we can understand that, like, these people, at least when we see these patterns emerging, we can understand that they're different. They're not like us. And I don't know if they're capable of that. I really want to think that they are capable of that. But, as you said, these are dire circumstances. We have to at least have some kind of separation, as a divorce, if you will, and kind of work ourselves out. And I think that... because I'm always trying to be a little conscious of the fact that maybe not everyone listening to this is going to be like us. Not everyone who watches this will be white, I'm sure. There will be some others. And, to them, it's like, well, yes, we are going to do whatever we have to do to preserve ourselves and our children. And, but it's not like there's nothing that you can do as well. You can, share this kind of knowledge. You can help others who are struggling with this. Maybe there's an inroad there, but I think that we have to walk that balance, sort of being stalwart and not giving an inch when it comes to maintaining our homelands and not heading on this path that we're on towards genocide, if you will. But we should I guess what I'm saying is, if other people are willing to work with us, we can kind of work with them. And obviously we're not like, I guess condoning outright hatred for anyone immediately, but that my main point is, if we want to avoid these stark consequences, then we do have to speak the truth, and we have to make sure that other people hear the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it's going to be for them. So
the truth can often be uncomfortable, but it doesn't change the fact it's the truth. And if you ever hope to solve a problem, you need to analyze that problem under the lens of truth. And if you're too scared to do that, then that speaks volumes about yourself, not about the truth, because the truth is simply the truth. It doesn't care for anything else. It just is. It is just a fact. And facts don't care for feelings.
Yeah, I've heard that one before. Well, so I guess that's pretty much it here. We'll wrap up then. Yeah, the war on Christmas is real, guys, and just as a positive message, like, people, there is always more that you can do, I think. And when it comes to understanding these truths, part of it is definitely understanding the history, what has been done. But oftentimes what I like to tell people is we should be thinking as if we've already gotten what we want, in a way, and at least when it comes to how we live our lives, right? And so I think that a lot of people, they're in a lot of these unhealthy habits, if you will, and a lot of times it's not of their own fault, right? That it's the culture and the system, their relationships and stuff that have all come together and kind of, they've made choices, but at the same time we can have sympathy with them. But what people can really, they can really be empowered after learning the truth, because you can then take that truth and start to kind of, a lot of people talk about in this movement the ethno-state, right? And what that would actually look like. And it kind of takes a bit of a vision to really craft that. But if you can project yourself into that future that you want to see, I guess, what is that kind of lame phrase that's often bandied about is be the change that you want to see in the world or something. But it's kind of true. It's like, you don't have to masturbate if that's something that is like, if you're kind of addicted to that, or if you're addicted to TV or something. You can just cut these influences out and just see what happens. And I think for a lot of people, they'll find that they do become a lot healthier, and that is more than anything what we need in the world.
Look, the important thing to note is, if you know you're doing something that's negative and harming your life, you've got no one to blame but yourself. You're the master of your own destiny. If you are watching porn 3 or 4 times a day and you're neglecting your wife, that is your fault. If you are smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, that is your fault. If you're overweight and you're just eating junk food and you won't go out for that run, that is your fault. If you haven't got a job because you're spending all day sat in a dark room playing computer games and then watching trash TV and then sleeping the next day until 2 p.m., that is your fault. There are lots of things that have been foisted upon us by our enemies. And that, what I've said, doesn't absolve them from their guilt. Doing what they have done, they are guilty of that, and they are guilty of pouring this damaging material upon our people. But if you know that material is damaging, if you know that the well has been poisoned, and you continue to drink from it, and you do not moderate your behavior and try to improve your life and try to do something with your life, then you are to blame. You are complicit in your own downfall. And sometimes it's damn hard. Look, everyone can go to my Instagram and you can see what kind of shape I'm in. You can see that I go to the gym. You can see I go running. You can see I do these assault courses. And I can tell you all that sometimes, especially as I'm getting older, I get up on a Sunday morning and I think to myself, oh God, there's frost on the ground, it's cold outside, it's windy. Is a 10K run really what I want to be doing on my Sunday morning? Outside. And baby, it's cold, but yes, that 10K run is what I want to be doing. Because when I get back from that 10K run, I feel great and I know I've done something good. And when I sit there with my bacon sandwich, I know I've earned it. And I know that if I don't do those runs, my body will deteriorate, my fitness will deteriorate. And am I doing myself any favors by allowing myself to slip in that way? And this is my final sort of message to your audience, is ultimately the people listening to this now, you, the audience, you are woke, you understand the problems that face us. You understand the pitfalls that have been placed in front of us. You understand the vices that have been sold and foisted upon the European people. Well, you have that knowledge, so you are better armed than the average person to go out into that wilderness and sidestep the landmines and avoid the traps and to jump over the pits. You can do that. Break free. And don't break free in a week or in a month or wait till January the 1st to make a New Year's resolution. Break free now. Your mind is free. You have no chains placed upon you. Go forth and be the person you want to be. Be the best person you can be and make the best of the time you have on this planet. Because those who are trying to make you the worst version of you, they have no power over you. They only have as much power as you grant them.
Well said, Mark. I'm wondering, do you have any New Year's resolutions?
Oh, I don't do that New Year's resolution rubbish. I basically, if I have a resolution, I just set about it and do it.
Yeah. Okay.
But I will say to everyone, I always try to be the best I can be. And over the last week, I must admit, I haven't been doing as much exercise. Those who follow me on this week on the alt-right will know I've been a bit ill. But I have already started, or had started until I was under the weather. Because that's something, right, if you are under the weather, don't train, because you just absolutely knacker yourself and it's not good for you. But I always try to improve what I do. So if I do a spinning class, but my cardio isn't increasing enough, I'll find something else. My latest little addition to my exercise is at my gym. They've got these stairs, these sort of they're like a treadmill, but they're not a treadmill. They're like stairs that you can just keep climbing, and the stairs just keep going. So you keep having to go up and up and up, and it tells you how many stories you've run. And I like to do 10 minutes on the revolving stairs as quick as I can, because that's a real massive cardio boost. And my sort of thing to people is, don't wait to New Year's. Look at what you're weak at, look at what you're not good at, and constantly improve and tweak what you do. Never rest on your laurels. Always look for self-improvement, because there's a lot of people out there who don't achieve the goals they want in life, and they sit around bemoaning it. They sit around saying, you know what, it's annoying that I haven't got that beautiful girlfriend. It's annoying I haven't got that good job. It's annoying that I'm not achieving what I want. And I know a guy that does this. I'm not going to name him or shame him, but he'll sit around smoking weed, bemoaning why he doesn't get the accolades he thinks he deserves. And you know why he doesn't get what he wants? Is because he doesn't put enough effort in. Because he's too busy sat around smoking weed, moaning about the problems, rather than putting down that spliff and getting out and working harder. And it's funny, because the harder you work, the luckier you seem to get. The more videos you pump out, the more likely you are to get a viral hit. The harder you work at the gym, the more likely you are to get a beautiful girl and look at you and go, wow, he's got a good body. You know what? Why don't you take me out for a cocktail? It's amazing that, isn't it? The harder you work, the luckier you get. So keep constantly improving. Keep looking at what you do and keep finding ways to up your output, to knock those rough edges off your projects. Because self-improvement is one of the greatest and one of the most fulfilling things you can do. And most importantly, you're in complete control of it. You are the master of your own destiny. So that's my tip for New Year's resolutions. Don't do them. Just engage in a constant cycle of self-appraisal and self-improvement, so that when you look back at your life, you can say, you know what, maybe I didn't get everything I wanted, but I did do my best, so I know that what I got was the best. I did the best that I could do. So then the problem isn't on you. If you didn't get everything you wanted, it's not down to you. Because you know what the worst thing is? The worst thing is not getting what you want and looking back and saying, you know what? I didn't get everything I wanted, but gosh, I might have done if I'd have tried harder. Because that is a life full of regrets. Because people often say to me, And this is a really poignant thing. People often say, can we really win, Mark? Can we really beat these overwhelming odds? And what I say is, in a way, that's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. Have you ever swam a mile before? Because if I dropped you off the coast of Britain and said, you need to swim a mile if you're going to live, you wouldn't sit there treading water thinking to yourself, can I swim this? You just set about doing it, whether you could, whether you had, whether you thought you could, regardless of the odds, you'd start swimming, regardless of how cold it was, how choppy the water was, whether there was big fish circling around you, you'd just swim, and you'd swim as hard as you ever could. And if you collapsed halfway into the swim, it wouldn't matter, because at least you've tried. You wouldn't even question your ability, you'd just do. And when it comes to survival, you just have to do. And whether you think the odds of winning are 10%, 50%, or 90%, if you're fighting for your survival, it doesn't matter what the odds are. Because if you set about something and you believe you can do it and you give it your all, you are much more likely to succeed. And this is a fight for survival. So that's how you've got to approach it. You haven't got to approach it second guessing yourself or worrying about whether you can succeed or not. You just have to do. You just have to give it your all, as you would in any other fight for survival.
Wow. I don't think I really have anything to add to that. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I mean, you really do have to just act as if you have no choice but to succeed. And as human beings, we are animals that are driven. We seek out struggle. We seek out the primest of conflicts and challenges. And that is how we become our full selves. And yeah, I think that this Christmas season, I hope that I encourage everybody to assess themselves and their strengths and weaknesses, and look forward to the struggle, because it will. We're going to face these challenges whether we want to or not, and the more you can prepare, the better off you'll be. Obviously, we talked about a lot of things that had to do with sexuality and reproduction today, and a lot of times this is a biological struggle, and it does come down to they're trying to attack our sexuality so that we don't continue, our genes don't continue on into the future. And I believe that there's enough people willing to push back against that. Also, with self-improvement, screw Jordan Peterson. Like, this is where it's at, like this is the top quality content. The plebs will start with clean your room, and then the people who want the real juicy stuff come here. So thank you so much, Mark, for coming on today. I look forward to doing it again sometime.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure, Matthew, and I hope you and your fledgling family have a wonderful Christmas and a very happy New Year. I wish you guys all the best.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you too.